A young girl stands defiantly in a crowded courtroom, her voice trembling as she explains why her mother hasn't been present for the custody hearing. The judge rolls his eyes dismissively when she claims her mother is a military sniper. Scoffs echo through the gallery. The judge, a decorated veteran himself, leans forward with condescension. "Little girl," he says with a smirk, "women aren't combat snipers. Stop making up stories." Just as tears threaten to spill, the heavy courtroom doors swing open. The room falls dead silent. From which corner of the world are you following this incredible story today? If moments like these where truth conquers doubt inspire you, consider subscribing for more stories where courage shines brightest in the darkest hours. The federal courthouse in Denver stood like a granite monument to justice, its neoclassical columns casting long shadows across the marble steps. Inside, Courtroom 4B buzzed with the tension that accompanies high-stakes family disputes. Afternoon sunlight streamed through tall windows, illuminating dust particles that danced above the proceedings like golden specks of anticipation. At the petitioner's table, Marcus Chun adjusted his wire-rimmed glasses nervously. The software engineer looked exhausted, dark circles under his eyes telling the story of sleepless nights and endless worry. His fingers drummed anxiously on the polished wood as his eyes constantly drifted to his daughter. 12-year-old Maya Chun sat beside her father's attorney with an unusual stillness that seemed beyond her years. Unlike other children who found themselves in courtrooms, she didn't squirm or fidget. Her long black hair was braided neatly down her back, and around her neck hung a simple silver chain with what appeared to be a small scope reticle pendant, so subtle most wouldn't recognize its significance. Her fingers would occasionally trace the outline through her shirt in measured patterns, as if drawing comfort from its presence. The Honorable Judge William Patterson entered with military precision, his bailiff calling for all to rise. Judge Patterson's bearing spoke of his own service, 25 years Army infantry before ascending to the federal bench. His reputation preceded him, no nonsense, intolerant of games, and particularly skeptical of what he called attention-seeking behavior in custody disputes. "We're here for the continuation of Chun versus Chun," Judge Patterson announced, shuffling through documents with practiced efficiency. "I see that Respondent Lieutenant Colonel Sarah Chun remains absent from these proceedings." His tone carried clear disapproval. The opposing counsel, Attorney Rebecca Martinez, rose smoothly. "Your Honor, Mrs. Chun has failed to appear for the fourth consecutive hearing over the past 6 months, demonstrating a clear pattern of abandonment and disregard for her parental responsibilities." Marcus's attorney presented a thick folder of evidence. School events missed, parent-teacher conferences skipped, Maya's hospitalization for appendicitis at age 10, when Sarah was unreachable for 3 critical days. The documented absences painted a picture of maternal neglect spanning years. "Your Honor," Marcus's attorney continued, "Mr. Chun has been the stable, consistent presence in Maya's life. He has never missed a recital, never been absent for a medical emergency, never failed to attend a school function. Meanwhile, Mrs. Chun disappears for months without adequate explanation, claiming military duties that conveniently have no verifiable documentation." Judge Patterson nodded approvingly, making notes. "Ms. Martinez, your response." "Your Honor, we have repeatedly attempted to secure Mrs. Chun's presence. Her pattern of absence speaks volumes about her priorities. She claims operational deployments prevent her attendance, yet provides no commanding officer contacts, no unit verification, not even consistent details about her alleged assignments. This demonstrates a fundamental failure to prioritize her child's well-being." The judge's expression hardened. The court has little patience for parents who use military service as a convenient excuse for abandoning their responsibilities to appear before this court. Judge Patterson turned his attention to Maya. "I'd like to hear from the minor child. Maya Chun, please approach the witness stand." Maya walked to the stand with remarkable composure, her small hand briefly touching the pendant before she was sworn in. She sat with perfect posture, hands folded in her lap, only occasionally fidgeting with the silver chain. "Maya," Judge Patterson said, his tone attempting warmth but carrying underlying impatience, "can you tell the court about your relationship with your mother?" Maya's fingers found the pendant through her shirt. "She loves me very much. She can't always be here because of her job, but it's not because she doesn't care about me. And what exactly is this job that prevents her from attending her own daughter's custody hearing? Judge Patterson leaned forward slightly. Maya hesitated, her dark eyes scanning the courtroom before settling back on the judge. She's deployed overseas. She serves our country in dangerous places. Yes, yes, Judge Patterson waved dismissively. We've heard the military service claims. But what specifically does she do? What's her job title? Maya's voice grew quieter but steadier. She's a sniper, sir. She protects soldiers and saves lives. A ripple of barely suppressed laughter moved through the courtroom gallery. Someone whispered audibly, "Kids say the darndest things." Judge Patterson's eyebrows rose in theatrical disbelief. "A sniper?" he repeated, his voice dripping with condescension. "Young lady, I appreciate creativity, but this is a court of law where truth matters." "It is the truth," Maya insisted, her voice remaining calm despite the mounting pressure. "My mom is one of the best snipers in the Army. She's saved hundreds of lives." The courtroom's amusement grew more audible. Judge Patterson removed his glasses with exaggerated patience. The gesture clearly meant to telegraph his growing irritation. "Little girl," he said, his tone now openly patronizing. "I served 25 years in the United States Army. Women are not combat snipers. The military doesn't put women in those positions. You're telling stories, and frankly, it's disrespectful to the real heroes who serve our country." Maya's cheeks flushed, but her eyes remained steady. "Sir, with respect, you're wrong. My mother is a hero, and she is a sniper." Judge Patterson's patience visibly snapped. This court will not tolerate fabrications, especially ones that dishonor legitimate military service. Young lady, women do not serve as military snipers. Period. These fantasy stories might work with your friends, but they won't work in my courtroom. Marcus half rose from his seat. "Your Honor, please, my daughter isn't." "Mr. Chun, control yourself," Judge Patterson warned sharply. "Your daughter needs to learn that lies have consequences, even in custody matters." He turned back to Maya, his voice carrying the full weight of judicial authority. "I'm going to give you one more opportunity to tell this court the truth about your mother's absences. No more tall tales, no more impossible stories about women snipers. The truth." Maya's composure finally showed cracks, her voice wavering slightly. "I am telling the truth, Your Honor. My mother serves our country with honor. She can't tell us exactly where she goes or what mission she's on, but she's saved so many lives. She's a hero, and nobody believes me because nobody wants to believe women can do what she does." Judge Patterson sighed heavily, making a note that seemed to carry significant weight. "Ms. Martinez, your cross-examination." The opposing attorney approached with a sympathetic expression that barely concealed her satisfaction. "Maya, has your father ever suggested you should tell these stories about your mother?" "No," Maya answered immediately. "Dad doesn't know the details either. Mom's job is classified." "Classified?" Ms. Martinez repeated skeptically. "And how do you know these classified details if they're so secret?" Maya's jaw tightened slightly. "I pay attention. I listen. I research things when I don't understand them." "So you've been researching military snipers online and decided that's what your mother does?" "No," Maya said firmly. "I found her gear once when I was 9. I found training manuals. I heard conversations she thought I couldn't hear. I put pieces together because I wanted to understand why she was gone so much." "So you've been spying on your mother and making up explanations for her absences?" "Objection," Marcus's attorney called, badgering the witness. "Sustained," Judge Patterson said. "Ms. Martinez, rephrase." Ms. Martinez adjusted her approach. "Maya, in all these years, has your mother ever directly told you she was a military sniper?" "She couldn't tell me directly. That would violate operational security protocols." This answer drew more chuckles from the gallery. Judge Patterson's expression grew increasingly skeptical. "So your mother has never actually confirmed these claims you're making to this court?" "She didn't need to confirm them," Maya said, her voice gaining strength. "Some things you know because you live them, because you see the evidence, because you understand what sacrifice looks like. And you expect this court to believe that a 12-year-old has figured out military secrets that trained intelligence officers would struggle to uncover?" Maya looked directly at Ms. Martinez, then at Judge Patterson. "I expect this court to believe that a daughter knows her mother, even when that mother serves in ways people don't want to acknowledge exist." A court officer approached the bench hurriedly, carrying a folded piece of paper. He whispered urgently in Judge Patterson's ear. The judge's expression shifted from annoyance to confusion, then to something approaching concern. "This court will take a 15-minute recess," he announced abruptly. "All parties will remain in the courtroom." Counsel approached the bench immediately. As the lawyers gathered at the bench, Maya returned to sit beside her father. Marcus put his arm around her shoulders, whispering something in her ear that made her nod solemnly. "What's happening?" Marcus asked his attorney when she returned, looking bewildered. "I honestly don't know," the attorney replied, clearly shaken. "The judge received some kind of priority communication. He's asked that everyone remain present, but he won't explain why." He looked different, almost concerned. The minutes stretched endlessly. Gallery members whispered among themselves, occasionally glancing at Maya and Marcus. Ms. Martinez shuffled papers nervously, checking her watch every few moments. The tension in the room grew thicker with each passing minute. Judge Patterson returned exactly 15 minutes later, but his demeanor had undergone a complete transformation. Gone was the dismissive arrogance. In its place sat something resembling respectful attention, even apprehension. "Before we continue," he began, his voice carefully controlled, "I've been informed that we will be receiving testimony from an additional witness. Given the sensitive nature of this testimony, I'm ordering this courtroom sealed. No one enters or leaves without my express permission." Ms. Martinez stood quickly. "Your Honor, we object to surprise witnesses. We haven't had time to prepare for cross-examination." "Noted, Counselor," Judge Patterson replied. "However, given the circumstances that have just come to light, I'm allowing this testimony immediately. You'll understand shortly." He nodded to the bailiff, who moved to the courtroom doors with unusual formality. The bailiff spoke briefly into a radio, then positioned himself at attention beside the door. The heavy oak doors opened with ceremonial precision. A figure appeared in the doorway that commanded immediate and absolute attention. Lieutenant Colonel Sarah Chun stood in the entrance wearing full army dress uniform, every ribbon, medal, and insignia perfectly positioned. But it was what hung around her neck that caused the entire courtroom to fall into stunned silence. The Medal of Honor caught the afternoon light streaming through the windows, its distinctive blue ribbon and five-pointed star creating an unmistakable silhouette against her uniform. The highest military decoration, awarded for personal acts of valor above and beyond the call of duty, hung with quiet dignity against her chest. Behind her stood 6 soldiers in dress uniforms, 3 men and 3 women, their bearing impeccable, their presence radiating the same quiet competence as their commanding officer. Each wore the distinctive insignia of special operations, and their collective presence transformed the courtroom atmosphere from civilian legal proceeding to military ceremony. Judge Patterson slowly rose from his seat, his earlier smugness replaced by the automatic respect one military professional shows another. His eyes fixed on the Medal of Honor, and his expression showed the dawning realization of exactly how wrong he had been. Lieutenant Colonel Chun advanced down the center aisle with measured steps, each footfall echoing in the absolute silence. Her team followed in perfect formation, their synchronized movement creating a visual rhythm that held the entire courtroom transfixed. She stopped at the appropriate distance from the bench and rendered a perfect salute. "Lieutenant Colonel Sarah Chun, United States Army, reporting as ordered, Your Honor." Judge Patterson returned the salute with muscle memory precision, his judicial persona temporarily overwhelmed by his military training. The courtroom remained frozen in absolute silence, every eye fixed on the woman whose existence they had just been denying. "Permission to approach, Your Honor?" Lieutenant Colonel Chen asked, her voice carrying the quiet authority of someone accustomed to command. Judge Patterson nodded, seemingly unable to find his voice. Lieutenant Colonel Chen advanced and presented a sealed envelope to the bailiff, who delivered it with unusual ceremony to the judge. "These documents were declassified this morning specifically for this hearing, sir. They should provide context for my absences and validate my daughter's testimony." The judge accepted the envelope with hands that trembled almost imperceptibly. He opened it with the reverence reserved for sacred documents, adjusting his glasses as he began to read. His eyes widened progressively with each page, his earlier certainty crumbling visibly with every line. While Judge Patterson reviewed the documents, the team of soldiers moved with fluid precision to stand behind Maya, forming a protective wall of validation and support. One of them, Sergeant First Class Maria Santos, briefly placed a hand on Maya's shoulder before resuming her position at attention. Maya's fingers found her pendant one final time, tracing the scope reticle pattern. Across the courtroom, her mother's hand made a subtle gesture at her side. The same pattern, a private communication finally visible to all who chose to see it. Ms. Martinez shifted uncomfortably, her confident demeanor evaporating as the reality of the situation became undeniable. Marcus stared at his wife with a complex expression of pride, hurt, vindication, and confusion all warring across his features. After several minutes of silence broken only by the sound of turning pages, Judge Patterson finally looked up from the documents. His face had been completely transformed, the earlier mockery replaced by something approaching reverence and deep embarrassment. "The court will take a 30-minute recess," he announced, his voice unsteady. "When we reconvene, this hearing will continue in my chambers with limited attendance. Lieutenant Colonel Chun, Mr. Chun, counsel for both parties, and the minor child only." As people began filing out of the courtroom, many casting backward glances at the soldiers who remained at rigid attention, Maya finally moved. She walked directly to her mother, stopping just short of embracing her, understanding instinctively that certain protocols had to be maintained while in formation. Lieutenant Colonel Chun looked down at her daughter, and for the first time, her military bearing softened slightly. "You held the line," she said quietly. "Always," Maya replied, her voice steady now. The bailiff approached respectfully. "Colonel, the judge has arranged a secure room where your team can wait." Lieutenant Colonel Chin nodded. "Thank you." She turned to her team. "Sergeant Santos, you'll accompany me to chambers. The rest of you, remain on standby." The soldiers acknowledged the order with crisp nods, then filed out with the same precision they had displayed entering. In the nearly empty courtroom, Marcus finally approached his wife. He stopped several feet away, his expression guarded but no longer hostile. "For years," he said quietly. 4 years of custody battles, of Maya defending you when no one would listen, of me thinking you had simply chosen your career over your family." "I know," Sarah replied, her voice equally soft but firm. "And I'll answer for that. But not here, not now." Marcus's eyes moved to the Medal of Honor, then back to her face. "So everything Maya said was true. Everything we couldn't verify, couldn't understand." "She's more observant than either of us realized," Sarah said, pride evident in her voice. "She figured out things I thought were impossible for a civilian to piece together." Maya stood between her parents, still maintaining careful distance, her eyes moving between them. "I knew you'd both have questions eventually. That's why I never said anything direct, Dad. I knew. You'd need proof." Before Marcus could respond, the bailiff returned. "Judge Patterson is ready for you now." Judge Patterson's chambers reflected a lifetime of military service and legal scholarship. The walls displayed his Army commendations alongside his judicial achievements, 2 careers that had shaped his worldview. He sat behind his desk, the classified documents open before him, his earlier arrogance replaced by visible humility. "Please, be seated," he said, gesturing to the chairs arranged before his desk. Sergeant Santos took a position near the door, standing at parade rest. Once everyone was settled, Judge Patterson cleared his throat, the sound carrying the weight of necessary admissions. "Lieutenant Colonel Chun, I owe both you and your daughter profound apologies. These documents confirm not only the existence of the program Maya described, but detail a level of service and sacrifice that few Americans will ever comprehend." Lieutenant Colonel Chun sat with perfect posture, her bearing professional despite the personal nature of the proceedings. "The program has been classified at the highest levels for operational security reasons, Your Honor. My daughter's ability to piece together the truth demonstrates remarkable intelligence and discretion." "Intelligence that I dismissed," Judge Patterson said, shame evident in his voice. "Discretion that I mocked." He turned to Maya. "Young lady, you showed courage today that many adults never find. You stood by truth when everyone around you, including myself, chose disbelief over faith." Maya nodded, accepting the apology with the same composure she had maintained throughout. "Thank you, sir." Judge Patterson turned back to Sarah. These documents outline operations spanning multiple combat zones, actions that resulted in saving hundreds of American and Allied lives. The Medal of Honor citation specifically mentions. He paused, reading directly from the documents. Extraordinary heroism during a siege situation where Lieutenant Colonel Chen's precision eliminated hostile forces while under direct fire, enabling the evacuation of 47 civilians and 23 wounded soldiers. Sarah remained silent, allowing the judge to process the information. Your absences, Judge Patterson continued, were not parental abandonment, but operational deployments to some of the most dangerous locations on Earth. And your inability to provide details or contacts was legitimate operational security, not evasion. Yes, sir, Sarah confirmed. Every absence was duty-related. Every missed event was a direct result of serving our country's interests in situations I cannot and will not detail, even now. Judge Patterson turned to Marcus. Mr. Chun, this fundamentally changes the context of your custody petition. Do you wish to proceed with the current filing? Marcus looked at his wife, then at his daughter, processing years of misunderstanding. I filed for custody because I believed Maya needed stability and predictability. I thought Sarah was choosing to be absent, prioritizing career advancement over family responsibility. He paused, running a hand through his hair. Now I learned that she was serving at the highest levels, that her absences were literal matters of national security. His voice carried a mixture of pride and confusion. I don't know what to think anymore. Your Honor, Sarah interjected, if I may. I have formally requested transfer to a training position at Fort Benning. Still classified work, but stateside with predictable schedules and regular home time. She placed another document on the judge's desk. This authorizes me to confirm that my operational deployment phase has concluded. I've been selected to develop and implement advanced training protocols for the next generation of special operations personnel. Judge Patterson reviewed the new document. And this position would allow regular presence in the family home? Yes, sir. Standard work weeks, scheduled training rotations that Maya and Marcus would know about in advance, and no more multi-month deployments to undisclosed locations. Judge Patterson closed the folder carefully. Given this new information, this court will dismiss the current custody petition. The circumstances that prompted Mr. Chen's filing no longer exist. He turned to Maya one final time. Young lady, you demonstrated today that truth doesn't require validation from authority to remain truth. You showed wisdom, beyond your years and loyalty that many adults never achieve. Those are rare qualities. Thank you, Your Honor, Maya replied simply. If there are no other matters to address, Judge Patterson said, this hearing is concluded. Lieutenant Colonel Chun, please extend my personal respects to your unit, and my apologies for the disservice shown to your family today. As they left the judge's chambers, Maya walked between her parents, the physical distance between them smaller than it had been in years. The team of soldiers waited in the hallway, coming to attention as Lieutenant Colonel Chun emerged. At ease, she told them. The hearing is concluded successfully. Thank you for your presence today. Sergeant Santos stepped forward. Permission to speak freely, Colonel? Sarah nodded. Your daughter has the instincts of an intelligence analyst, Santos said with a slight smile. Observation, pattern recognition, operational security, textbook skills. Maya looked up, surprise and pride crossing her face simultaneously. That's enough, Sergeant, Sarah said, but there was warmth in her voice. My daughter will choose her own path when the time comes. As they walked toward the courthouse exit, Marcus finally broke his silence. Where will you stay tonight? Your apartment lease expired 18 months ago. The Army has arranged temporary quarters, Sarah replied, until I can find something more permanent. No, Maya's voice was firm and final. Mom, come home. Both of you. We're a family. We figure this out together. Sarah and Marcus exchanged a long look over their daughter's head, years of separation and misunderstanding hanging between them like a bridge that might still be crossable. Just for tonight, Marcus finally agreed. We have a lot to discuss, a lot to figure out. Sarah nodded, then turned to her team. Dismissed. Report to base tomorrow at 0800. The soldiers saluted and departed, moving with the same synchronized precision they had shown throughout the day. Only Sergeant Santos remained momentarily. Colonel, she said quietly, presenting a small object. The team wanted your daughter to have this. Sarah looked down at a challenge coin, custom-made with special operations insignia and an inscription that read "Truth Under Fire." She placed it in Maya's palm. "We give these to people who hold the line when everything tells them to surrender," Sarah explained. "Welcome to a very exclusive club." Maya closed her fingers around the coin, feeling its weight and significance. "Thank you." The Chun family home sat on a quiet cul-de-sac in suburban Denver, a two-story colonial with a wraparound porch and a tire swing hanging from an old oak tree in the front yard. Sarah paused at the front gate, taking in the sight of a place that had remained more concept than reality for the past several years. "Dad updated the security system last year," Maya said, noticing her mother's assessment of the property. "And we added motion sensors after that break-in 2 blocks over." Sarah nodded approvingly. "Good operational thinking." Marcus unlocked the front door and stepped aside. "It's different inside. We renovated the kitchen last year, and Maya convinced me to turn the basement into a study space." Sarah entered, her movements still precise and economical even in domestic space. She had changed from her dress uniform into civilian clothes, dark jeans, and a simple sweater, but her bearing remained unmistakably military. The house felt both familiar and foreign. Family photos lined the hallways, documenting Maya's growth through the years of Sarah's absence. Science fair ribbons, swimming trophies, honor roll certificates, a timeline of achievements Sarah had missed. "I kept files for you," Marcus said quietly, gesturing toward an organized shelf system. "Photos, videos, school reports, everything I thought you'd want to know about when you came home." Sarah turned to him, genuine surprise evident in her expression. "You kept records?" "It seemed important," he replied with a slight shrug. "For when you came back." Maya disappeared upstairs and returned with a small wooden box, placing it on the coffee table. "I kept things too," she said. "Things I thought you'd want to see, things that happened while you were gone." Sarah sat on the couch, opening the box with careful attention. Inside lay a collection of mementos, report cards, certificates, medals from academic competitions, handwritten letters that Maya had written, but never sent. "You won the state science fair?" Sarah asked, lifting a gold medal. 2 years running, Maya nodded. "My project last year was on ballistic trajectory calculations and environmental factors affecting long-range accuracy." Sarah's eyebrows rose slightly. "That's fairly advanced mathematics for middle school." "I had good reason to be interested in the subject," Maya said simply. Marcus moved toward the kitchen. "I'll start dinner. You two have catching up to do." When he was gone, Maya sat beside her mother, still maintaining a respectful distance. "Was it worth it?" she asked, her voice low and serious. "What you did, the missions, the time away, was it worth missing everything in that box?" Sarah considered the question with the gravity it deserved. For the country, for the lives saved, for proving that women could serve at that level. Yes. It was necessary work that needed to be done. She looked directly at her daughter. "For you personally, for our relationship, for the mother-daughter experiences we missed, no. That's the hardest part of service sometimes. The greater good doesn't erase the personal cost." Maya absorbed this answer. "The other soldiers with you today, do they have families?" "Some do. Sergeant Santos has twin daughters, 8 years old. Sergeant Williams has a son Maya's age who thinks his mom works in logistics. Master Sergeant Thompson chose not to have children because of the demands of the program." "How do they balance it all?" "Not perfectly," Sarah admitted. "That's why I requested the transfer. Our unit completed its primary mission, proving women could serve effectively in special operations roles. Now others can carry that forward, while some of us focus on rebuilding the personal lives we put on hold." Maya pulled the challenge coin from her pocket, examining its details in the lamplight. "What does this inscription mean? Truth under fire?" "It means you stood by what you knew to be true even when everyone around you, including authority figures, told you that you were wrong. That takes a special kind of courage. Will other people believe women can do what you do now? Some will. Others won't. But the proof exists now. The program has been declassified in limited ways. Women are serving in special operations roles, and their service records speak for themselves." From the kitchen came the sounds of dinner preparation, the familiar rhythm of home life that had been absent for so long. The normalcy of it created a strange counterpoint to their conversation about classified operations and military service. "Dad never stopped wearing his wedding ring," Maya said suddenly. Even during the worst custody fight arguments, even when his lawyer suggested he consider divorce proceedings to strengthen his case. Sarah's expression softened. Your father is a man of honor. He believes in commitment, in keeping faith even when circumstances make it difficult. He believed in you, Maya corrected. Even when he didn't understand, even when he was angry about the absences, he never believed you had stopped loving us. He just couldn't reconcile that with what seemed like abandonment. And you? Sarah asked. How did you reconcile it? I knew you wouldn't leave unless something bigger than us required it. I just had to figure out what that something was. Marcus called them to dinner, and they sat around the dining room table, a sight so ordinary yet so rare in their household that it carried profound significance. They ate in companionable silence, gradually easing into neutral conversation about Maya's school, Marcus's latest research project, and the changes in their neighborhood. You could have consulted me on that military history paper you published last year, Sarah said with a hint of humor. I might have had some relevant insights. I considered it, Marcus admitted. But reaching out through official channels seemed complicated, and I wasn't sure if personal contact would compromise whatever you were doing. Nothing about your work would have been compromising, she assured him. Your scholarship is actually cited in several training manuals now. Marcus looked surprised. You kept track of my career? I kept track of both of you, in every way the security protocols allowed. After dinner, Maya helped clear the table, then announced she had homework to finish. She paused at the bottom of the stairs. Mom, will you still be here tomorrow morning? Yes, Sarah. Promised. I don't report to Fort Benning until next week. Maya nodded, satisfied, and headed upstairs, leaving her parents alone with years of unspoken words between them. Marcus poured 2 glasses of wine and led the way to the back porch. The evening air carried the crisp promise of autumn, and the garden below showed signs of careful maintenance despite the season's changes. She's remarkable, Sarah said after a long moment of comfortable silence. You've raised an extraordinary daughter. We raised her, Marcus corrected gently. Your influence was there even when you weren't. Her strength, her analytical mind, her sense of honor, those didn't come from me alone. Sarah acknowledged this with a slight nod. I've missed so much. The documents you saw today only scratched the surface of what the program required. The importance of proving women could serve at that level. What it means for military equality moving forward. It's difficult to overstate. I understand the significance, Marcus said. What I struggled with wasn't the importance of your work, but the cost to Maya. And to you. And to you, Sarah added quietly. You didn't choose to be a single parent, but that's effectively what you became. Marcus looked out over the garden. The hardest part wasn't the practical aspects, getting Maya to school, handling emergencies, managing day-to-day life. The hardest part was not being able to explain your absences in a way that made sense to her or to myself. I know, and that's something I'll have to live with. They sat in silence as darkness settled over the garden, the distance between them on the porch swing both physical and metaphorical, yet somehow less vast than it had been that morning. What happens now? Marcus asked eventually. With the custody case resolved? With your new assignment? With us? That depends on what you want to happen, Sarah replied. 4 years is a long time to live separate lives. I won't pretend I can walk back in and resume where we left off. No, Marcus agreed. But maybe that's not what matters most. Maybe what matters is whether the people we've become can build something new together. For Maya's sake? For Maya's sake first, Marcus nodded. And maybe eventually for our own. The following week, they returned to the courthouse one final time. Sarah arrived in her service uniform, but without the full ceremony of her previous appearance. Judge Patterson had requested a private meeting to formally close the case and address the extraordinary circumstances that had unfolded. I've spent considerable time reflecting on this case, Judge Patterson said once they were seated in his chambers. Not just on my errors in judgment, but on what this case represents. He turned to Maya. You demonstrated something that trained intelligence analysts struggle with, the ability to piece together classified information from limited sources while maintaining operational security. More importantly, you showed the courage to stand by truth even when authority figures dismissed you. Maya accepted the recognition with quiet dignity. Lieutenant Colonel Chun, the judge continued, your service record speaks to achievements that most Americans will never know about or understand. Your sacrifice, and your family's sacrifice, protected freedoms that people take for granted. He placed a document on his desk. I'm entering a formal commendation into this court's record, acknowledging the extraordinary circumstances of this case and the disservice initially shown to your family. Sarah nodded respectfully. Thank you, Your Honor. The custody matter is formally dismissed with prejudice, Judge Patterson concluded. This family's legal issues are resolved. The personal healing, of course, continues to be your own responsibility. As they exited the courthouse together, Maya walked between her parents on the wide stone steps. The autumn sun created a golden backdrop, dramatically different from the tension-filled atmosphere of their previous appearances. Sergeant Santos waited at the bottom of the steps, now in civilian clothes but still recognizable by her bearing. She nodded respectfully to the family. Colonel, she said, just wanted to let you know the team is ready for the transition to Fort Benning. Everything's prepared for the new training program. Thank you, Sergeant. I'll be there Monday morning at 0600. As Santos departed, Maya looked up at her mother. What kind of training will you be doing? Teaching the next generation of special operations personnel, building on what our unit proved was possible, Sarah explained. Sharing what we learned so that future operators are better prepared for the challenges they'll face. Will you tell them about today? Maya asked. About the 12-year-old who figured out classified operations and kept them secret for years. Sarah smiled, a rare, full expression that transformed her features. You'll definitely be part of the curriculum. Lesson 1 in observation skills and operational security. Marcus laughed, the sound surprising all of them with its naturalness. Just what her ego needs. As they walked toward the car, Maya reached out and took both their hands, creating a physical connection between the three of them for the first time in years. Home? She asked, a question that meant far more than its single syllable suggested. Sarah squeezed her daughter's hand, meeting Marcus's eyes over Maya's head. Something passed between them, an understanding that acknowledged the complexity of their past while embracing the possibility of their future. Home, Sarah confirmed, the word carrying promises that hadn't been there before. Behind them, the courthouse stood tall against the autumn sky, a place where truth had finally overcome assumption, where courage had been recognized and validated, and where a different kind of justice had ultimately prevailed. Have you ever met someone who kept faith when everyone else chose doubt? Sometimes the greatest courage isn't found on distant battlefields. It's found in standing by truth when the whole world tells you you're wrong, in keeping secrets that protect the people you love, and in believing in heroes even when no one else can see them.